and move slides. All right, so I will start us off in the usual way, but of course, this is not a usual seminar. But I will note that, as always, closed captions are available. And here are the directions for how to do it. And if you are having any challenges, please put it into the chat because Liv, Cora, and Ali are standing by to provide any support to help you get those. Next up. So this is the end of our 6-year journey, but not the end of our seminar series. And that's really important to underscore. We are going to continue on because we think there are so many more topics to be explored and honestly, so much energy to be generated by just coming together multiple people, so many perspectives, so many ideas. There's always something we all learn and take home from. And that is why we're going to keep continuing. So you keep bringing your topics you want to discuss, and we'll keep inviting folks and making this Zoom room happen so we can all see each other. These are the 2 next seminars that we have scheduled. The registration links are here. And I'm imagining Ellie is also putting them into the chat because I don't think you can click on this one right here. So we will have one very soon, 1st of May, well, first Friday of May, second really because it's the 8th, which is the results of a statewide survey of RCCs in Kentucky, which there was a lot more RCCs in Kentucky than we were aware of. So we have updated our list of RCCs, so will very shortly. So be sure to look at that list when you get a chance. And then we have Amy, who's also going to be speaker today, alongside Lenny Jason, talking about the importance of recovery housing and building bridges to enhance recovery support. And that's happening in July. So the series will continue, but today is an important reflection point about thinking about what we have done over the last 6 years and why. If you go to the next slide, before we get there, we want to give our usual updates and notes. As you know, our project is focused on advancing the science on recovery community centers. And when we were funded 6 years ago, other teams were as well, and to also advance the science on other recovery support services, as well as on addiction recovery science. And we all came together to form the Consortium on Addiction Recovery Science. And we always share notes here in microfiche and then email them out to you guys next week so you can actually click on the links and see all the deadlines. Importantly, I want to highlight that we have a new website down here, which hopefully Ellie will also put into the chat for us. That link right there makes it a little easier to find up-to-date information and makes it easier for you all to just see what the work groups are, how they operate, in case there's a work group you want to join. It's open to everybody. The point is to collaborate together. There's also a showcase series for any topic, not just recovery community centers, but for other science as well. So consider presenting in the showcase or sharing your expertise and insights there. All right. So much to course. We did want to highlight that course hosts and has an open announcement right now for the annual conference, the National Conference on Addiction Recovery Science. In the last 2 years, it has happened in April, actually right around today, would have been when it happened last year. It is now being held in September. It is an online conference, and the call for proposals is due on May 6th. And you can also see what the agendas have looked like in the previous years to kind of get an idea if the agenda this year might also be of interest to you. And Ellie has kindly put all those links and PDFs in the chat for you. All right, then still in our usual business notes, list of RCCs. I mentioned thanks to Amanda and her team, we got a wonderful update of RCCs in Kentucky. If you know of new RCCs near you, or you think we've just missed some, we always appreciate you all telling us about them so we can add them on our list. And the goal is really that if somebody hears about RCCs and wants to know if they have one near them, this list helps them do so. And that could be for referrals, for actually sending people there to benefit from the RCC, but it can also be for research connections, researchers who want to partner with RCCs to do work together. So please send us those names and we will add them to a list so people can find each other. And with that, we get to one of our favorite pieces of the seminars, the live feature, where we get to hear from a different RCC every time about what it's like when you walk through doors of their RCC. And today we have MIFA's Jonathan Westphal from ROCovery. Jonathan, could you tell us what happens when you walk through the doors of your RCC?
Sure. Thanks, Bettina. So, hi, everybody. As Bettina mentioned, my name is Jonathan Westphal. I'm a person in long-term sustained recovery, which for me means that I live without alcohol or drugs since February 27 of 2017. I'm also an affected family member, and I'm the executive director of ROCovery, formerly called ROCovery Fitness, and we're in Rochester, New York. Our organization began with a hike posted on Facebook in February of 2015. ROCovery is a peer-led supportive community of physically active individuals brought together by sober living. Pretty simple. Our goal is to foster a safe, supportive, and inclusive environment for healing and recovery, to help individuals rediscover their inner strength and resilience through fun, fitness, and just sober social connection overall. We're a not-for-profit community-based social care provider bringing fitness and non-fitness based classes and events, as well as peer recovery support services to individuals with SUD and mental health challenges in our community. All of our programs are free and open to anyone with at least 48 hours of continuous sobriety. We welcome friends, family members, and anyone that chooses to live a sober lifestyle. So that being our goal and what we're about, how it all began, we just began with a hike on Facebook, and it sort of grew from there. Uh, our founders, who included my predecessor as executive director, uh, were in early recovery themselves, and they identified a real missing piece in the continuum of care being what happens after formal treatment or after I'm focused on my recovery, my sobriety 24 hours a day, whether it be in treatment or in incarceration or what have you. How about when I go back home? How about when I go back into my community and where, my disease really kind of flourished? Well, we're sort of that missing piece to that. So what can I do the rest of the time when I'm not going to outpatient or when I'm not engaged in 12-step? Well, uh, we can go on a hike. We can do different things together in a social setting that happens pretty much 7 days a week. Um, we're an organization made up of members with personal experience in recovery from drug and alcohol addiction. I would say caveat to that, not only those, we have folks who are on staff who would identify as having an eating disorder, as having gambling addictions, so we have a breadth of experience with our staff and our volunteers. But we all have a sense of passion for service to give back to the community. And in fact, it becomes an integral part of our own recovery journey, that service piece. We're driven to make a difference to help combat the current trends, um, everyone's welcome to join ROCovery. That's the biggest question we get. Can I bring my family? Can I bring my, yes, yes, yes. The answer is yes, as long as you have that 48 hours of continuous sobriety. And even then, we work with folks out in the community, not necessarily at the center, who are struggling to get that 48 hours, but strive to get there. We just offer support. We have two outreach and engagement specialists, focus primarily just on harm reduction outreach. So just helping people to use in a more safe way that they can, be around a little bit longer. Hopefully, our ulterior motive is hopefully they'll reach out for recovery at some point and see how much fun we have. We can go to the next slide. So activities that we offer at the outreach center itself, we have an outreach center on Dewey Avenue in Rochester. It was gifted to us by a board member who had actually, before she was a board member, had lost her son to overdose and asked, what can I do to help this organization grow? And well, we needed a location. So we got one. It's an old firehouse. We have open gym hours Monday through Thursday, 8 to 7, and then Friday and Saturday, 8 to 1. Um, we have all kinds of classes. We have things going on 7 days a week, not just fitness stuff, but also mutual aid groups. We have a Crochet and Connect. We have board games. We have yoga. We have other support groups like our LGBTQ plus support group. All kinds of, if it's a pathway of recovery for anyone, it could be for anyone at our center, and that's what we encourage. If volunteers have, a specific interest or something they use for their recovery, bring it in. We have a Diamond Art Club is our newest class just added. I had never even heard of Diamond Art before, but it's pretty cool. It's a craft, so we bring all kinds of things into the center to engage again that social connection. How do we rebuild our natural social supports through this prosthetic social support, right? ROCovery is that organization that helps people sort of rebuild those natural social supports in their own lives. We can go to the next slide. And this is what that looks like. This is the inside of our center. These are four different rooms in our center. So the upper left-hand corner, that's part of our gym, our large open gym area where we have, and that's only like a quarter of it that you're seeing right there. It's just very long, so it's hard to get in a picture. We have group fitness classes that go on virtually every day of the week in the gym, and then on the right, upper right, we have that's our community space. So people will come in through the front door. Bettina asked, what does it look like when you come there? You just come in through the front door. You get the biggest, warmest welcome you'll ever get in your life, I think. And I've heard that from other people. And you just kind of sign in. It's a quick, just member participation. Here's my name, here's my email, and I'm in here. What am I in here for? Open gym, a class, or am I receiving peer support? And then you're on your way. By the way, the only thing people do when they first become members, they fill out a quick membership questionnaire, which just gives us a release of liability, some quick demographic information, photo release statement, and that's it. You're a member for life. Um, and then so you come into the community room. A lot of people come in just to hang out, particularly during the weekdays. We have a lot of folks with a lot of time on their hands. They come in, have coffee, talk to some peers, talk to other community members, and just kind of hang out for the day. That happens in our community space. The lower left-hand side, that's our yoga room, my favorite room in our whole building. It's got a great vibe, great energy to it. And then the lower right-hand side, we have a game room where we clearly have pool with some trick shots going on there, and we have a ping pong table and foosball table, and just about anything that we can utilize to connect with folks over. So we'll go on to the next
I will
slide.
say, Jonathan, I don't know how many slides you have, but we are at time. So there's something that you want to end up on.
Nope. Lots of activities outside the center as well. We go on hikes, we go ice skating, we go tubing, we do stuff everywhere. We do holiday dinners, all kinds of stuff, fishing, camping. We go to the Adirondack Mountains every 6 weeks and go mountain hiking as well. I'm sure there's a picture. There you go, Whiteface Mountain. So that's more of our gym area. And then our outreach and engagement specialists, our peers, of which we have eight of our 10 full-time staff members are all we call outreach and engagement specialists, but they're peers helping people with their recovery journey. And that's just some stats. Yep.
Perfect.
Great.
And this is why we love highlighting them because every center is different. And after the meeting, I'll have to ask you what modern board gaming is as opposed to regular board gaming. But thank you for sharing this.
For sure. Thanks for having me.
All right, we are moving on to our polling questions, which will only be our usual demographics to see us in the room, and then one question with that is pertaining to today's topic. For that one question, it's at the bottom. So you, as always, click the answers. Then when you've completed all of them, the gray submit button will turn blue. For the last one, we really want to know about what this seminar series, what you liked about the seminar series. And if there are other things that you want to share, there's multiple ways of doing it. You can write in your answer to the chat. You can email us, and I'm sure that Ellie is going to put our email address there. Or we even, for this special seminar, we have a link for that. This is going to be for research topics, but any kind of topics you guys have, any food for thought you want to leave us with about challenges to come, things that are on your mind, topics you would like to see, research you would like to see. We have a red cap thing for that, a catch-all form where you can express those thoughts anonymously if you don't want to put them into chat or say them out loud in this meeting. So I will give you all a moment to complete this. And then when we have reached 80% of everybody completing it, we will close this poll. Great to have you here, Patricia.
I apologize for being late. It took 3 times to somehow get into the meeting. So I'm excited by this. Thank you. And I'm
Wonderful.
and I'm glad that they were using the Adirondacks where I just moved from. So I do.
There you go.
Just hit 80%.
Wonderful. All right. If you want to close the poll, unless anybody wants still
Oh,
a
well, I already
second.
closed it,
Oh,
so
too late. Moving on. All right. So for the things that we liked about the seminar, the things that are important to us, and it's a feeling of community that is tied for top spot of seeing scientific results related to RCCs. And I have to say, honestly, seeing the feeling of sense of community joined with scientific results is really, really cool. That we are doing scientific work together, but we're doing it all with a sense of community and feeling that. Not all of us, but a lot of us value that. And that is really cool. And I see there's a couple of write-in answers too, which is exciting. Wonderful. Keep those thoughts coming. So what we are going to be doing today, if you go to the next slide for us, I'm going to give a quick summary of what we set out to do 6 years ago and what we have done since. And then I'm going to be inviting the current steering committee members to share what it has meant for them to be part of this journey and what thoughts they have at this particular moment in terms of where we're at and where we need to go next. And then, of course, we want all of you guys to share your thoughts too. We will record, well, we'll video record for the hour and a half. At 1, we're gonna that's where we stop the version we share online. The half hour after that, we will take notes on too and share the notes, but not the video recording of that. But this is really for us to share our thoughts and ideas and challenges and hopes together. And we'll kick you off by sharing from the steering committee. And then also our supportive staff, Liv, Core, and Ellie, are also going to share from their perspectives. All right, so let me give you a summary quick so we can go into our actual thoughts. So our goal was to bring together different groups of people in science advancing activities. And the people we were trying to bring together include, of course, because it's RCCs, RCC directors, staff, volunteers, and people who come to RCCs, and bring them together with clinicians and scientists and healthcare decision makers to work together on advancing the science on recovery centers. And in our seminars, we've been doing a really great job about actually bringing these groups together. We've had 46 seminars over the past 6 years on average, and the average is inflated because in the beginning we had, I think, like a 500 one or 400, so it's inflated. But we've been more recently around the 60, 80 people mark, which is still impressive given that it's that many people who come together on a Friday to spend an hour and a half with each other. We've had 37 live feature presenters like John did today, sharing about their specific RCC. We had 90 invited presenters. Some of them were recipients of a pilot funding that NIDA had available for people starting out in research on recovery community centers. Others were people we just invited because the topic was of importance and we wanted to highlight their research or pull on their expertise. And then we also had 19 discussants who we brought in just to enhance the discussion around those topics that we all shared, so they could bring in their different, usually from a different stakeholder group, to kind of share their experiences. So we brought together a whole lot of different people. Many of the discussants, for example, never knew what an RCC was until they came here and hopefully now know and love them. We learned, we adapted across the years. Importantly, we added the live features. We realized early that not everybody knew what a recovery community center was. And even if you did know, might not visually know how different each RCC is from each other. So that is a wonderful new addition. We now have a YouTube channel with a compilation of all of those live features. So whenever somebody asks us, hey, what's an RCC like? We send them a link to the YouTube and saying, here are 37 examples of RCCs, go browse them. And of course, we also send them to the list of RCCs. We added discussions to enrich the discussion, have multiple perspectives. We have a meeting after meeting, which we didn't originally have. And we added the notes on the discussion so people didn't have a video recording, but if they didn't want to, they could anonymously say things in the meeting after the meeting. So we continue to innovate as we go, and we hope that you all keep suggestions going as we move forward into the next stage of these seminars. Next slide. We funded all of it is funded by the National Institute on Drug Abuse. We merely were the stewards who were able to award 12 pilot studies. all of which were informed by this community through the seminars. And many of them gave, I think that was something we started later with the later pilot studies, where pilot teams would first present what they were about to do before they did it, and then came back after the project completed to share the challenges and the results and the next steps. So it was really a back and forth and a building together as a community, which has been fabulous. There are 12 publications based on these studies, and I'm sure Ellie will be able to put a link so you guys can see those publications. Which is wonderful. There are some few NIH grants that came out of it. For our team here at Healthful Flourishing, based on the nationwide survey, when we talked to a bunch of RCCs, we then reached out to two of them, Northern Ohio Recovery Association and the Detroit Recovery Project, and together we were funded as co-investigators on an R24 grant where we built towards a large-scale randomized trial. And that's a project that's still going on, and Angela's with us in the chat. So that's something that came out of it, which is wonderful. Angela and Craig have an R03 that's going on. That they have a pilot team and they're building on that work. I'm mentioning you, Jess. I'm not sure if you're here. She wasn't funded by us, but she heard about RCCs through here and will now, in her career development award, do more recovery community center work. And then we did have a large-scale grant that you all heard about last summer. We've done it for the last 2 summers. We just heard it's not successful, but we will certainly build on the work that went into it to come up with new grants. So there is research progress in the works. Keep the ideas coming, and we'll keep translating them into action or help you find partners you need to find for your work. That is what this forum is about. We also supported a special issue. It was the first special issue on addiction recovery science, and RCCs were well represented there, which is wonderful. Next slide. Measurement was something that was a priority for us, and we do have a repository of useful scales, not saying these are the scales you have to include in any study you do, but rather suggestions for a variety of things you might consider, and different studies might benefit from different measures. So that is something we keep going, and by all means, if there's a need you have, reach out to us and we add things if you have something, or if you have feedback on something that's listed, share that as well. It's supposed to be a work in progress. There's also now, well, not now, there has been for a long time, a measures and metrics work group from course. So if you want to discuss in more depth any kind of scale issues, consider presenting there or considering sharing your thoughts with that group. So there's a whole bunch of us who are working in this area. All right. Next slide. We also wanted to spread the word of RCCs in a variety of academic settings. We funded 7 travel awards. Then, of course, we are also usually very much in the National Conference on Addiction Recovery Science, which I mentioned, that doesn't require any travel. It's an online conference, but there's usually representation from this group there as well. And then, of course, through the R24, we had the opportunity to spread the word about RCCs at universities and research groups and treatment clinics. Faces and Voices was kind to invite us a couple of times over to share our progress and get notes on future directions. I even did a podcast recently that we'll share at some point. I was able to spread the word at the SAMHSA Tech panel about recovery community centers. So we'll continuously sharing the word wherever we can. All right. Next slide. I'm going to turn it over, but before I turn it over, these are the wonderful speakers you will hear from today, who are going to be sharing with you what the last 6 years have felt like for them, what their reflections are, and what they think our next steps should be, or what their hopes and dreams or worries for the future are. But before I turn it over to our wonderful steering committee, I also wanted to acknowledge and thank our wonderful past committee members. Life happens. 6 years is a really long time. So some of our steering committee members cycled off, but nevertheless, a huge thank you for them for being part of launching this study and getting us to where we are today. All right, with that, I want to turn it over to Amy, our first steering committee member, to share her thoughts.
Hi, folks. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Amy Mericle. I'm a research scientist in the Alcohol Research Group at the Public Health Institute. And I am so pleased to be sharing my reflections on the contributions of this project. Granted, there are many, but I'll be brief and just focus on what stood out to me the most. So I've been lucky to have been a part of this project from the outset, and I've also been part of other projects that are part of the COARS network. And what I would say that this project has done really well is creating community. And most of that happened within the context of this the seminar series. Now, this may not be surprising because this project is all about recovery community centers, but I love how this project brought the magic of what's created in RCCs and expanded it to a new context and a new level by bringing together RCC operators, researchers, and other key stakeholders. So for example, ARCO and Faces and Voices have served as a network and glue for RCCs, many of whom operate RCOs. Many of the RCOs operate RCCs. And they've been doing that for a number of years, but there was no similar network for researchers studying RCCs or a formal mechanism for RCC operators and researchers to connect and interact with each other. So this project was amazingly mindful to include key figures in the RCC advocacy movement, and you'll hear from some of those today when planning this project. But the seminar also skillfully balanced research and practice in each webinar. So for example, highlighting RCCs across the country, the live feature, and spreading the word about what they are and what they do, so that people could really get a sense of, RCCs and their magic. So not only, in the seminar series, did researchers get to learn about RCCs from those who know them best, but RCC operators got to hear from researchers about what they were curious about as well. The seminar also had lots of room for discussion, for an exchange of dialogue, so that research could be informed by practice, and practice was provided with a pipeline to cutting edge research. My hat is off to how the seminar series created community. And I loved that in the polling question, that was really reflected. I wasn't the only one who was feeling that. So it feels a little bit odd or weird, or for me to be shamelessly part of this team and extolling the virtues of what what we've done with this project. But we didn't do it alone. So month after month, folks showed up. Folks spread the word about this seminar series, and this lovely RCC research community grew, and just created a really exciting platform for all things RCC. And I really hope that there's a way for this to continue. I know that there's hope for it to continue, but funding is tight, and it would be lovely for this to go on even after funding has dried up. So I love that there's a plan for this, and I really don't want it to stop. So thank you to Bettina and this team, but everyone for showing up and creating this community. It's been fabulous to be a part of it.
100% concur. It's everybody in this room right now, and all the other people who have been here for any of this. Thank you, Amy. Patty?
Thank you, Amy, and thank you, Bettina, and thanks everyone who's been here for part of this journey over the past 6 years. It's really meaningful to be here for this moment of reflection. So when we began this R24 initiative, recovery community centers were widely recognized for their promise, but not nearly enough for their evidence. So we knew that RCCs mattered deeply to the recovery community, but we also knew that the science had not yet caught up with the practices. So this initiative really helped to close that gap. And from the perspective of Faces and Voices of Recovery and our National Alliance of Recovery-Centered Organizations, this work has been really transformational. First, it has really strengthened the integrity and the credibility of recovery support services. By grounding lived experience in rigorous research, we've helped to elevate RCCs beyond good ideas or nice additions to really essential evidence-informed assets in communities across the country. So that really matters. It matters for funders, for policymakers, healthcare partners, and most importantly, for the people who rely on these services. Second, the benefits to the national RCC network have been profound, because through this work, RCC leaders and staff have had many opportunities to engage directly with researchers as true partners to contribute practice-based wisdom to shape research questions, and to see themselves reflected in the literature. And together we built a shared language around outcomes, fidelity, quality, equity. So the third point is that this initiative modeled how science and lived experience can and should coexist. So too often recovery support services have been studied about rather than studied with. So this R24 approach really flipped that dynamic. It respected the expertise of recovery communities while also strengthening the rigor of the methods that were used. So that balance is not easy, and this team handled it fantastically. The questions in front of us are even bigger and more urgent than ever, such as how do RCCs sustain and scale without losing their community roots? How do we measure outcomes that truly reflect recovery, connection, purpose, equity, and well-being? And how do we continue to prepare the next generation of researchers and recovery leaders to carry this work forward? So we need a continued investment, not just in studying RCCs, but in supporting them as organizations that help shape the science in real time. So I'm truly grateful for the amazing research team, the steering committee, the funders, most of all, the recovery community centers and the peer leaders who showed up over and over again, shared their realities and asked the hard questions and trusted this process. So it's been a privilege to be part of this effort. And thank you, Bettina and team, for the 6 years that we've had learning together.
Wonderful. Thank you. So true. Vinod.
Hi, folks. It's a pleasure to get a chance to share some reflections. My name is Vinod Rao. I'm a addiction psychiatrist. I practice at Mass General Hospital. And it's really been a privilege to serve on the steering committee for this R24 for these years. And what's really striking for me personally is just not just what it produced, but how it approached science. Um, as a scientist, I've been exposed to a lot of different forms, wet labs where they're doing biological research, more traditional clinical research where they're carefully recruiting subjects with tightly controlled protocols. More recently, I've been doing electronic health records, health services research. The scale is large, but the connection to the individual experience feels abstract. There's always has been a distance between the people that this work is intended to benefit, and the research itself. What struck me is how different the dynamic is here. The people that actually receive the benefit, individuals, communities, often represented by their recovery community centers, are really close to the research design, and that's like ultimately how things have always supposed to have been. But here we actually get to live that. It's I love the energy that comes from the engagement with the community. Dozens, if not hundreds, of people attend and are shaping what the questions are. As an academic psychiatrist operating within the ivory tower, um, it's it's really a privilege to step away from that a little bit and expand my world beyond patients and other clinicians and administrators, to really spend more time with the advocates and policymakers, and people that are navigating their own journey. The energy has been really amazing, and I think it's really informed how I think as a clinician. As a clinician, I was exposed to sort of a narrow model of what recovery community looks like. Like I sort of knew about the existence of recovery coaches, of course, 12-step programs, very peer led, and I got a chance to attend a few of them. But really, I think this project has highlighted for me how much broader and more diverse that community looks like, and how central recovery community centers are within it. One of the things that has impacted how I practice is been trying to bring this back into how we deliver care in our peer supervisions. We talk about, are there opportunities to connect to individuals who are along their journey with recovery community centers? How can we encourage these partnerships? I've been a point of emphasizing this with my trainees. who don't just stay local, but they go out across the country and say like learn about what your recovery community centers are like where you're landing. There might be incredible partnerships that are available. And if I've learned anything from you all, it's how thirsty you are to connect and find other advocates and people that care about the similar things. Just go about it in different ways, but we can complement each other. Um, so I've just been really appreciative of getting a chance to be um, part of this journey. Yes, the next part of the journey will look a little bit different. It's been a real pleasure to work with Bettina and her team. I think of them as Bettina in particular as sort of like a conductor for an orchestra. And the conductor like really brings it all together. But let's not forget the instruments. You all who are on there who are actually like producing the music and they're out there in the community that are doing this work and listening to conductor and listening to each other and learning how to make better music. And then again, like in the big picture, this isn't about any one of us, anyone on this call. This is about the music, um, which is why we're doing this. And it's for like helping people in their recovery on their journeys. So it's been such a privilege to be part of this with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, the note. And it made me think of John saying, the warmest welcome you'll ever get when you walk through doors. And it is so true in this research realm. So many doors that we knocked on were opened and the scientists were able to engage in these wonderful collaborations. Thank you. Perfect. Moving on to John.
Thanks, Bettina. John Picard, Face of the Voices of Recovery. Yeah, I can't express how much gratitude I have, and just start out with thank Bettina and Liv and Ali and Cora for putting this on, month to month, week to week for 6 years is amazing. I'm the newest community member. I've been on for 2.5 years, and I've had the pleasure to be a part of 2 seminars. One to talk about our recovery data platform at Faces and Voices of Recovery, and one because myself and Dr. Jill Riggs, who is also on the screen, were awarded a pilot grant through this to look at data inside the RDP, which we're still working on and working on a paper. And we're really excited to be able to release that hopefully sooner rather than later. But I love the fact that research and recovery community centers are joined now. I know what my experience was like walking into my local recovery community center and asking for help. And, they gave it to me, and I wouldn't be here without it. Shout out to Portland Recovery Community Center in Portland, Maine. But yeah, and because of that, I was able to volunteer there. They hired me as a data analyst, and eventually I came over to Faces and Voices of Recovery, and yeah, it's just it's amazing, and the amount of information that has been put out. And the great thing is you go to healthyflourishing.com, you can see all of that information because all of the seminars are there for you to watch, for you to read about, and you can catch up, which is great, and all the research projects as well. But it's been an amazing to watch that connection between research and recovery community centers, people in recovery that know what's going on. And one way we can get it out there is by doing these seminars, but also by getting the money in for research. Because if we can inform people that are outside of recovery community centers and recovery community organizations through tested research, that is where recovery movement, recovery spaces, recovery research will continue to grow. And as such, I have an engineering degree, and because I've been a part of this, I've been thinking about at my aged age, granted I'm only 52, but going back to school to get my master's, maybe a PhD in data science, and being a part of starting to get into more of being that the PI of a $1 million grant to really inform communities, inform the nation, inform the world about what recovery community centers and the recovery ecosphere in general does for us. Yeah, so just grateful to be here and looking forward to 2 more seminars at least to come.
Oh, there'll be more. Just we only schedule so far advanced because in each seminar we generate thoughts for what is here next. So there'll be more. Wonderful. I love that you are considering that path, John, and I'm there every step of the way if there's anything we can do to support and help. All right, Julia.
Oh, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for just having done this. This is amazing. I've been a part of it from the very beginning. I'm a person in long-term sustained recovery. And first, I'd like to say hello to all the Massachusetts Recovery Support Center staff and and also members that have gone through the Massachusetts Recovery Support Centers. And also, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Bill White. I think he and the work that he's done actually got me into thinking about what research was about and for within the recovery system. Because for many, many years, I felt like we were drenched in prevention, intervention, and treatment. And finally, there was some attention being paid to recovery. And so for that, I'm very, very grateful. What the initiative has meant to me, well, when people start talking about science at first, science, I had to look it up. Science is a systemic process to gain knowledge. And for those of us in the recovery support centers, I mean, that was the last thing we were thinking about. We were like, yeah, data is important, but there was so much else that we were trying to do within the recovery support centers. And finally, when Bettina and John Kelly and the team started, really focusing in on this, I was like so grateful to be a part of it. And I was just coming out of, I think, my last year at the Bureau of Substance Addiction Services. So I've been honored and privileged to be a part of this. I think the most important piece to me has been the voice of lived experience. I think that there are so many places that use us as tokens that say, oh, we have people, on the board. We have people in, a coalition or a committee that are people with lived experience, but they don't truly value our voice because to value true engagement means to suffer. It really does. It means to suffer because it means that you're going to be disagreed with. You're going to be, there are going to be pieces that say to you, this is, I don't agree with the way you guys are doing this. You people who are not in recovery, you don't understand what's happening here. And you gave us the opportunity to actually voice our true opinion and be authentic about it. So honoring the validity of lived experience to me has been probably the most important part of this. Could we do better on it? Of course we could. But that has been, genuinely working with multiple experiences and perspectives, I think for me has been the highlight of being a member and a part of this group. And when I think about moving forward, what steps to continue to build the science, I think about equity and justice. I think about the fact that as a group, we didn't prioritize that. It was, yes, it's important, but we had to keep bringing it back. We had to keep, bringing it to the forefront. And, considering what's been going on in the country, basically shutting us down, silencing us, erasing equity and the wording, the horrific things that are going on throughout this country. I think that it behooves us to stand up and be brave and courageous and say equity and justice is important. And I'm going to use those damn words no matter what. On my website, I've included the words equity and justice. So if I don't get hired as a result of it, I don't care. We really need to align our values. We say we have these values, but then, we fear that we're not going to get funded as a result of using these such important values, part of who we are, our belief systems. And so we're doing collaborative projects, we're doing coalitions, we're working in network. And, it's about supporting nonprofits. I love Patty and I love Faces and Voices. And what happened to Faces and Voices and to Patty and to the staff was horrific, based on funding being pulled, based on, then having to erase the words out of all of, the documents. That's incredibly painful. It's traumatic. And I think we should just be brave and say, moving forward, let's look at the systemic issues in working in partnership and bring up equity and justice as the priority of the work we do. And so again, thank you so much for all that you've done and we've done. And I'm just so grateful to have been a part of this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Julia. And I very much appreciate your challenge and call for all of us towards equity and being in alignment with our values and live and fight for our values in everything we do. And I will say the next speaker was going to be Phil, who is not here yet. He was here on Monday, so something important must have come up for him, who I'm certain would have added thoughts in that vein for us. I want all of you guys to think about challenges you see and challenges you think that we can overcome and topics we need to focus on in our ways of doing research going forward. Before we do that, I want to turn it over to Ellie, Cora, and Liv for their thoughts.
Thank you, Bettina. This has been such a wonderful and really meaningful seminar. And just hearing the voices from the steering committee and just throughout all these years has been so important to me. So just a little bit background on me, if you're not familiar, I started with Bettina's lab in 2021 as an undergraduate intern, and I was really drawn to her community engaged work, as which you probably are all familiar with, as well as her work with positive psychology research, which you might be a little bit less familiar with. So as an intern, I had attended these seminars and when possible with working with my schedule. And this experience and my connection with the R24 has been really fundamental, informative in how I see my research going in these next couple of years. It has just really highlighted how community engaged work can happen on a national level, and also how there's just so much collective harmony. I feel like even though it has been so remote and it has been national, it has sometimes felt like I've been in the same room with you folks, which has been really meaningful. So obviously I had to pursue a full-time position with Bettina's team, and it wasn't until working full-time with this team that I really saw, kind of getting the hands-on experience working with RCCs, how important their impact is to the communities. I was able to actually get to visit Step Rocks in person in Massachusetts. I think I saw Loretta on this call, so hi Loretta. And I also got to visit CCAR, and these were, CCAR was like an RCC I was writing notes about as an intern. So to be able to go to the RCC in person was so meaningful, and to see how integrated they can be into the community and really meet people where they're at, I think is something I will definitely be continuing in my work. I am excited to share I'll be pursuing a PhD in clinical psychology next year. So everything I've learned from this team, Bettina's leadership specifically, as well as the steering committee members, and as well the people, everyone who's been able to join these calls, everything I've learned will not leave me, and I will definitely be hoping to continue this work. And I think something that I've really taken back from this experience, especially during these turbulent times, is really the resiliency and openness that you have to do. And Julie, I love what you were saying about being brave, because I really do think that being open and sharing about your stories and being vulnerable is how you get through these failures, and how these failures are actually meaningful. So thank you. I'll pass it on to Liv, I think.
Yep. Yeah, similar to Ali, I also started in this lab as an undergraduate intern, and the R24 was actually the first project I ever worked on in Bettina's lab. And I remember being just so taken aback by how the research actually existed and worked together. I think before sort of joining Bettina's lab, I didn't have any direct experience working in research, and I think I very much thought of it as like that hierarchical, very kind of away from the community, siloed off into a little corner where like we do research and we put out the papers and no one ever hears about it again. And these seminars were very, very fundamental in changing that idea of like how research can be done, and the fact that like you can be in conversation with people and you can be working not only like in collaboration, but like in step with the people that you actively want to be helping and working with. And so I, like Ali, will also be leaving this fall to pursue my PhD in clinical psych. And this is just this entire project and working in this lab and working with RCCs has been incredibly formative to the way that I want to do research and the topics that I'm interested in. And I definitely will just so excited to continue to be able to spread the word about RCCs to, other people that I work with in the future, and to be able to hopefully come back to this, group again in the future and do direct work as well. So just very, very, very grateful to have this formative experience so early in my career so that I get to take it with me in the future.
Awesome. Well, I guess I will take it from there. Wow, this has been probably one of my favorite seminars that I've attended, just based off of hearing all the wonderful insights and stories and reflections from the steering committee, and also from my peers Ali and Liv. But yeah, I have a slightly different trajectory of how I got to the lab and how I've been interacting with the seminars. I've been with the team for almost 2 years, which I don't know how time flew that quickly. But I want to talk very briefly about 2 experiences that got me here. So and also like how these seminars have been building on those experiences. So I was an intern at a recovery home for women with substance use disorders in my master's program. And that was like the first time that I was exposed to, I don't know, just like the idea of like peer workers and how people with lived experience can be such instrumental pieces of people's recovery. But I didn't really know how to carry that into research. And I was at this position before this where I think it was, let's see, I think it was Vinod that was talking about this, how it's like, felt like an abstract relationship with the participants. And that was definitely like my experience, where I was interacting with these participants, but I was seeing them for an hour and then never seeing them again. And like, they weren't really, involved. It felt like we were just taking information from them. So seeing the seminars and seeing how people are doing science in real world time, where it's like this symbiotic relationship with people with lived experience, and we're not just taking, we're learning, and we're working with them, has been truly amazing. And I really appreciate that. And it's something that I definitely want to continue in my future, is that mutual respect and understanding. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that as like one of the main things that I want to take away from this, and bringing that to the forefront.
Wonderful. Stancil, I saw you raise your hand. This was misclick. Because I will say at this point, we want to turn it over. And this is really about, you can say anything. In particular, we're looking for research challenges and other things. Julia's message on holding on to our values and making our research be concordant with that, I think, is critical. And I will say the grant I mentioned that didn't get funded, it broke my heart, because it was all about community engaged research. It was all about bringing more pilot funding into our community, co-learning from each other about how to do this. And that's really hard for me, and that's something I'm currently going through to dust off and go on to the next project, but to maintain the mission, the vision, and the values. So Julia, it's really important for me to hear that voice and keep shouting at me for that, so that I can do that in my next steps forward. For everybody else, for you, what are the burning topics? What are the important things? And it can be, what seminars do you want to see? What research do you wish people would do? What topics do you think we need to grapple with more? I'd love to hear from all of you about your thoughts, reflections. And I know it's challenging to shift from having been talked at for an hour straight, to offering your thoughts, but I will say it's always helpful, and this is what all of our research has always been based on. It's these discussions that happen after we've presented a whole lot. So any thoughts you can share would be wonderful.
Come
Hey,
on,
Bettina.
folks. Thank you.
Go ahead, Corey.
Yeah, I would say of what Julio said and what you said, Bettina, I'm interested in the way that the change in funding priorities has harmed or not harmed public health and the people that we serve. And so the erasure of allowing to pursue equity, justice, or mention race in our work, or the defunding of certain community-based projects. I like to track how these things actually affect our public health and the people that we serve as a research priority. Something I think about.
Yeah,
So
100%, Corey. Yeah, and even more, somewhat more abstract, even just tracking like funding of centers, how that's impacting their ability to sustain their presence in communities overall. Thank you, Corey.
yeah.
Other thoughts? Other challenges? No challenges for the rest of you guys, because that's fabulous. For me, the last 2 years have been tough. 18 months, for particular on Friday, getting that score. Go ahead, Joe.
So it's not a challenge, but it's a reflection. In all the seminars, and especially in this project working with John and Faces and Voice of Recovery that the Pilot Awards is funded, there's just so much recovery taking place around the United States. Like we saw thousands and thousands of RCC participants and literally hundreds of thousands of events that are being held across and all in 1 year. And that's only growing. So we are working on that data and it will be getting out there. And but so in reflection, just how much recovery has been inherent in all this that we presented over the last 6 years.
100% agreed. And I definitely think it's so important to have it out there to just kind of spell out the many, many encounters, the many hours that people are spending in a supportive environment with people supporting them in a different way than we think about in a clinical world or in other ways if you haven't been paying attention to RCCs, which was easy for people, but hopefully it's becoming increasingly less easy to not know what recovery community centers are. So that'll be wonderful. Other thoughts, reflections, ideas for the future, challenges for the future, hope for the future? Because I will say I'm definitely hopeful seeing Cora Liv and Alec bringing values forward and pursuing that in their graduate studies and spreading that to new labs and new colleagues. So that's wonderful.
Yeah, one thought that I have is that it's so cool that we now have at least for now, a good information hub to find out about RCCs, all the videos that you did, all the live features, because a lot of people don't know what is an RCC and is it a fixed thing that you have to create, or is it really your idea implemented in the way that works for you? And then it could be very diverse from state to state, from city to city, from neighborhood to neighborhood. You just do what you think is right. And to see the diversity of these and that they're kind of cataloged, you can look at them, you can refer people to them. You can say, hey, you are thinking of coming to my place? Just go to this library and look at what we do, or look at things that people do in the next town over, or I can refer you to these people in Maine or in Kentucky or something, because I can look it up and I can find it. So that is something that now exists that we can hopefully maintain to add new ones to and keep updated information about. Maybe at RCCs, you guys might be challenged to say, hey, we now know a little bit more about measurements and things that matter to funders. How do we integrate that? Can we find recovery tools that collect data that'll help us show how useful we are to potential funders, and also maybe make it salient to the people who come to your center and say, this isn't just stupid paperwork. Look how far you've come. When you first filled this in, you had a lot of this, but very little of that in terms of recovery capital. But look how far you've come. Now you have this and this too. Or, you flatline. Let's look at, this thing that seems to be challenging. How can we work at it? So you have like also maybe clinical potential in some of these measures that we can look at. And then hopefully when we gather it back from all the RCCs in the future, we can say, look at the overwhelming evidence that has been collected, and this is what it's doing, and here are the challenges, and we have data, and you want to fund us, and you want to see if it's working. We can help you start quantifying it and showing what it's all doing. So I think it's a wonderful resource hub, connection hub, and I hope you guys continue to benefit from it, use it, link to it, refresh your memory of certain topics that are interesting. And that's what I took away from this. It's really wonderful.
Absolutely. Thank you. We are transitioning in a moment to the unrecorded part. Before we stop recording, let me just say a heartfelt, profound thank you to everybody, because it's been such a wonderful experience the last 6 years, transformational, really. And we're going to keep it going because the inspiration keeps going and the work remains to be done and so much more of it. But I so deeply appreciate every person who has contributed any minute to any of the pieces of this wonderful opportunity that NIDA created for us for 6 years running. So thank you to all of you. And then we will stop the recording here, and any other kinds of
We are
we're
not
not
stopping
stopping
the
the recording,
recording.
but
We are just
we're not stopping the
post this
recording.
part on YouTube.
Exactly, but this is the part where we will not put it on YouTube. If any of you guys want to stay around and have any more deep discussions, like if Corey has ideas about how we can do the research on the harm that's been done, like what kind of metrics we can look at and what organizations, any kind of thoughts that you guys have about things you want to research on, collaborate on, this is the time.